You ever have one of those days where you just know something's yours? Like, not just a feeling, but that deep, satisfying certainty that this thing you worked your tail off for is finally hitting your lap? Yeah, that was me when I went into work that Thursday morning. I had been gunning for that promotion at the office for months. I'm talking late nights emailing clients, volunteering for the extra projects that nobody else wanted, even bringing in donuts on Monday. All in the name of one thing, that corner office with the view, my name on the door, and maybe a slightly better paycheck so I could stop eating instant noodles every week. So imagine my face when I find out the promotion didn't go to me. Instead, it went to Sarah. Sarah, my coworker, ambitious, sure, but pretty cutthroat about everything. She smiled at me that morning like nothing was wrong while the news landed like a punch to the gut. How did she get it? Me? The one who stayed late and went the extra mile? Something was off. I swear, for a good 5 minutes, I sat there trying to figure out if I was dreaming. Maybe the email got mixed up? Maybe it was some sick joke? But no, the email was real, the congratulations were in black and white, and my heart was sinking. What confused me most was that I hadn't seen it coming at all. No hint. No, hey, I just got good news, from Sarah. Just this cold, official-looking digital message. And our manager Tom, well, Tom was the kind of guy whose decisions could be unpredictable, to say the least. One day, he's all cheerleader. The next, he's avoiding eye contact and mumbling something about budgets and team realignment. Not exactly the kind of leadership that helps you feel confident in your career moves. I remember glancing up and catching Tom's eyes just after I read the news. There was this weird flicker-like guilt, or maybe avoidance. Honestly, it was hard to tell. And Sarah? She seemed a little too collected for my taste, like she already knew something I didn't. That day, I sat at my desk staring at the screen, the words sinking in slowly like a cold wave washing over any enthusiasm I'd had. The promotion was gone, but so was the certainty that I understood what happened. There had to be more to this story. And I'm telling you, I wasn't just going to brush this off like some boring office drama. If something strange went down, I wanted to know what. Because somewhere between those polished smiles and recycled coffee cups, something odd was definitely brewing. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be a simple congrats and moving on story. No, this was just the beginning of something messy. And, oh, was I about to find out how messy it could get? Alright, so to really get a grip on what went wrong that day, I needed to step back and look around. Our office wasn't some cutthroat Fortune 500 giant, but it also wasn't the laid-back startup vibe a lot of people imagine when they hear mid-sized company. It was this weird middle ground. Everyone was busy, there was pressure to perform, but at the same time, you still had a lot of old-school office politics bubbling under the surface. And man, if you didn't learn how to navigate it, you were pretty much a sitting duck. I'd been grinding for this promotion for what felt like forever. The kind of grinding where your weekends get swallowed, your social life turns into a vague memory, and you convince yourself that missing your cousin's birthday party is just part of the hustle. I volunteered for the thankless projects nobody else wanted. Remember those endless client calls where you pretend you're calm even though the person on the other line sounds like they might explode at any second? On there. I was the guy who juggled spreadsheets with a smile and stayed 2 hours late just to fix someone else's mess. Then there was Sarah. From the moment she joined our team, Sarah had this, how to put it, laser focus? She was sharp, no doubt. Always dressed to impress, always had the right answer at meetings. Her ideas usually got the nod from Tom, our manager. She was the kind of ambitious that shifted the energy in the room. I used to think my work ethic would outshine her charisma and strategic moves, but clearly that wasn't enough. Speaking of Tom, oh boy, Tom. He was this well-meaning guy, kind of like a dad who tries to connect but ends up sharing awkward stories no one asked for. The kind of manager who'd say things like, "We're all a family here," while simultaneously dropping vague hints about necessary changes and budget constraints that basically meant someone's not getting what they thought they deserved. It wasn't that Tom was a bad guy, he just didn't seem to fully get what leadership actually meant. He was more comfortable avoiding conflict than facing it head on. So yeah, with Sarah on one side and Tom on the other, trying to figure out what the hell happened made my head spin. I started to think maybe there was some behind-the-scenes drama I'd completely missed. You know how sometimes in offices, the quiet whispers in the hallway hold more truths than the official emails? Like those moments when you catch two people glancing around before lowering their voices? That vibe. It made me wonder if Sarah had pulled some strings or if Tom was playing favorites in a way that wasn't exactly transparent. On top of that, I remember overhearing a few snippets of conversations from other coworkers in the break room. Nothing concrete, just little comments like, "Did you hear about the last-minute client presentation Sarah led? Guess she really impressed Tom." And "Heard the promotion panel was swayed by some recent numbers Sarah presented." Those comments planted a seed in my mind, but without proof, it was all just noise. Even stranger was the mix of Sarah's behavior that morning. She wasn't gloating, which kind of threw me off. No, I told you I'd get it, or smug smirks, just this, cool composure that felt almost rehearsed. Like she was carefully acting out a script written for a perfectly scripted happy ending, but off camera, everything was different. And then there was Tom, who, when I tried to ask casually about the decision, deflected with some nonsense about team dynamics and future growth opportunities. I'm pretty sure team dynamics is corporate speak for don't question me. It wasn't just about the promotion anymore. It was about how it slipped right through my fingers without a hint and what I hadn't been told. Was this just a case of me not reading the room, or had something else been going on behind the scenes? Was Sarah more than just a better candidate? Was she playing dirty? And where the hell was Tom in all this anyway? I decided I needed to understand the landscape better before jumping to conclusions. So, I started paying more attention to the little things: who Tom pulled aside for chats, how Sarah interacted with the higher-ups, and whether any of my recent projects had gone unnoticed or undermined. Because, honestly, the idea that I'd worked my ass off only to have it quietly erased didn't sit right with me. That evening, I met up with Jake to vent. Jake's the kind of friend who's brutally honest to a fault and happens to be a bit of a cynic. He listened to me ramble about the lost promotion and the weird energy around Sarah and Tom, then just shook his head. You really think Sarah's that competent? Or do you think it's more of a puppeteer thing? Like maybe Tom's playing favorites and you're just the unfortunate pawn? He asked, raising an eyebrow. I shrugged. I don't know anymore. I mean, Sarah's good, but this whole thing feels off. Tom's been distant, Sarah's too calm, and I'm the one stuck watching from the sidelines. Jake nodded slowly. Sounds like you're in the middle of some chess game you didn't sign up for. You gotta figure out which pieces are moving and who's really calling the shots. That hit home because that's exactly how it felt, like I was one move away from being checkmated without even knowing the rules of this game. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet. If things were being manipulated behind my back, I wanted to see the whole board. So, with a beer in hand and a slightly desperate spark in my eye, I decided then and there that I was going to dig deeper. Whether it meant poking around in Sarah's recent projects, trying to get a read on Tom's sudden cold shoulder, or maybe even talking to people who usually kept their cards close, I was determined to understand what really went down. Because if this was about more than just work ethic and late nights, if there was some unseen game happening underneath it all, I wanted in. Or at least, I wanted to know exactly who was playing me. So, I started paying attention in ways I probably should have done from the beginning but didn't. You know, those little things that seem insignificant at first but then start to add up like pieces in a puzzle you didn't even realize you were trying to solve. For instance, I noticed how Sarah would suddenly become strangely busy every time Tom came around. Not busy in the usual project overload way, but like she was timing her coffee breaks perfectly to avoid running into me or anyone else who might ask awkward questions. One day I caught her near the printer whispering urgently into her phone, and she practically jumped when she saw me. It was almost like she had been caught doing something she didn't want me to see. Then there were emails. Oh man, the emails. I went back through my inbox trying to find clues, and weirdly enough, some of the messages I sent about my project updates were marked "Read by Tom," but he never responded or brought them up in meetings. Meanwhile, Sarah's updates? Instant replies, praise, action points assigned so fast you'd think she was running the whole department. It was like my efforts were fading into the office wallpaper while hers were being spotlighted. I asked Jake to help me look at this from a different angle, hoping his outsider, but in perspective, could uncover something I was blind to. He's brilliant at pointing out the obvious that you're too emotionally invested to see yourself. Maybe an unfortunate gift. We started poking into Sarah's recent projects, comparing timelines and outcomes, looking for dents or scratches that might explain her sudden promotion. There was one big client presentation that Sarah led last minute, which people had mentioned before, but something about it felt off when we dug deeper. Turns out, a couple of slides in her deck looked suspiciously familiar, like someone else's work was stitched in without credit. And then, the real kicker? We found out Tom had actually handed over some of my key assignments to Sarah last month. On paper, it looked like a routine shuffle, but in reality, it was a direct hit to my visibility and chances to shine. When I confronted Tom casually about why he had given away my projects, he just smiled awkwardly and said, "It's all about team synergy, you know?" Team synergy, right. By then, I was feeling this stew of frustration, confusion, and a gnawing suspicion that Sarah wasn't just riding the wave of her hard work. There might be something more calculated happening here. Was she actively undermining me? Was Tom just the clueless middleman, or was he pulling strings behind that nervous smile? Jake kept pressing me. You really gonna just sit on this? What if Sarah's got a playbook, and you're on the sidelines watching the game? The problem was I wasn't sure what playing dirty looked like anymore. Was sharing credit without acknowledgement sabotage? Was reshuffling projects behind my back fair game? The gray area in corporate politics is murkier than I thought. I had to decide, do I call this out, risk looking petty or bitter? Or do I keep quiet, swallow it, and hope to find another way up? My gut told me that if I remained silent, I'd only become collateral damage. But going after Sarah or Tom felt like walking on thin ice, and I wasn't exactly Mr. Graceful when it came to office drama. Then, just when I thought I had pieced together enough to confront at least one of them, something unexpected landed in my lap. Jake had a contact, an old colleague from another department who mentioned casually that there'd been some behind-the-scenes discussions that might have influenced the promotion decision. Not rumors or gossip, but actual talks involving senior folks beyond Tom and Sarah. Apparently, Sarah had recently volunteered to lead a cross-department initiative that no one else wanted. Sounds like a claw your way to the top move, right? But the twist was that this initiative came with a budget caveat. It needed an internal sponsor, someone who could vouch for its potential and secure extra resources. And guess who? Was that sponsor? Not Tom, not Sarah's immediate manager. It was one of the company's higher-ups who had previously given the green light to Sarah's promotion. This guy didn't even work on our floor. He was kind of a mystery figure, known for making surprise calls and shaking up plans when people least expected it. What was wild was that nobody on my team really knew much about the sponsorship or why it happened so suddenly. Sarah's quiet, controlled composure started making sense. She wasn't just being cool, rehearsed happy ending cool. She was hiding a conversation that no one else had been invited to. The piece of the puzzle I hadn't seen was this whole level of corporate maneuvering above my manager's head. Suddenly, my frustration with Tom seemed almost misguided. He might have been as blindsided as I was, or maybe he was caught somewhere between loyalty and politics. So now here I was, holding this new information that changed everything. This wasn't just a story about Sarah sneaking around behind my back or Tom being a clueless middleman. It was bigger, a tangle of alliances and sponsorships that I hadn't even known existed. Only, this new insight threw me into a deeper dilemma. Do I try to confront Sarah about this higher-up sponsorship? Do I question Tom or bring the issue to HR and risk looking like the office drama queen? Or do I keep digging, hoping to find my own avenue to make a comeback? Jake looked at me after hearing all this and said, "Man, seems like you're caught in some corporate soap opera now. Your move." And honestly, I wasn't sure what my move was. But one thing was clear. I wasn't about to let this promotion just vanish like it was never meant for me. Not without understanding every page of the script first. So, armed with this new piece of the puzzle, a higher-up quietly backing Sarah and her initiative, I found myself staring down the most awkward office conversation I didn't want to have. Because, let's be honest, nobody enjoys walking into a room and dropping a bomb about secret sponsorships and political backstabbing. It's like bringing a grenade to a potluck. But somehow I knew I had to talk to Tom first. He was my closest thing to a bridge in this mess, however shaky. I caught Tom outside the break room, mid-slurp on his tragically sad-looking office coffee. Trying to sound casual, I asked, "Hey Tom, can I get your take on something? Heard some chatter about a sponsorship Sarah got from upstairs for a project. Was that something you knew about?" Tom's face went from the usual awkward dad at a barbecues to a full-on deer in headlights. He scratched his head, then admitted, "Yeah, I kind of found out about it pretty late myself." Honestly, I was blindsided. You have to understand, these exec decisions sometimes come from up top without much heads up to middle management. I nodded slowly, feeling a mix of sympathy and irritation. So, Tom wasn't some mastermind behind the scenes, but more like a guy caught in a corporate crossfire. It explained the vague team synergy nonsense and why he never properly briefed me about projects getting reassigned. He was juggling too many balls to keep them all in the air, most of them invisible to us on the floor. But then came the part that caught me off guard. Tom sighed and said, "Look, I won't pretend I handled this perfectly. Maybe if I'd been more transparent, things wouldn't have gotten so messy. And honestly, Sarah's been pushing hard to get noticed. I just didn't expect it to come at your expense." At that moment, I realized something important. This whole situation wasn't some grand conspiracy masterminded by Sarah or Tom individually. It was a messy tangle of ambition, miscommunication, and the typical chaos of office politics. Sarah played her cards well and had someone influential in her corner. Tom? Well, he was kind of a well-meaning conductor trying to keep a band from falling apart. After that talk, I decided to reach out to Sarah not for a confrontation, but to clear the air. I wasn't expecting a Catherine the Great apology or anything cinematic, but I needed to understand her side because, honestly, the silence was eating me alive. I invited her for coffee, and to her credit, she agreed without hesitation. We sat across from each other mid-sip, and I kept it straightforward. "Look, Sarah, I won't beat around the bush. I was blindsided by the promotion. Then I found out about the sponsorship, had no idea that was a thing. What's going on here? Did you mean to keep me out of the loop?" She paused, fingers twisting her cup's rim, and then said quietly, "Honestly, I wasn't trying to cut you out. When the opportunity came up, I thought I was stepping up for the team, making moves, showing initiative. I figured you knew about the project stuff, but maybe I was wrong not to fill you in more. Her voice was steady, no smugness, just defense. It was the first crack in the polished armor I'd been so focused on defeating. Look, she added, I know it might seem like I played dirty, but it wasn't personal. I've been watching you grind for that promotion. I respect it, but I had to take the shot when it came. If I'd waited for an invitation, I'd still be sitting on the sidelines like you felt you were. That hit me in the weirdest way because, despite everything, I understood her. I had been so caught up in feeling wronged that I'd forgotten how ambition looks from the other side. Sometimes it's less about stepping over people and more about grabbing the stage when it's open, even if it means some awkwardness along the way. The coffee chat didn't magically fix the gap between us or erase the sting of losing what I thought was mine, but it gave me some peace. Ambition isn't a zero-sum game, even if it often feels like one in offices like ours. In the weeks that followed, I decided to shift focus. Instead of stewing in absence or plotting exposés, I looked for ways to grow that didn't depend on political backing or secret sponsorships. I talked openly with Tom about being more involved in upcoming projects and asked Sarah for collaboration, surprisingly. It felt strange at first, breaking the unspoken script of rivalry, but gradually things started moving. I landed a lead on a new client pitch because I'd spoken up earlier in a meeting. And Sarah? She started sharing insights, sometimes even inviting me in on her projects. It wasn't all sunshine, but it was better than silently nursing a bruise. Looking back, losing that promotion felt like a harsh reset, an unwanted plot twist in my work-life story. But in the end, it nudged me to see the bigger picture, that office politics isn't just about who wins or loses, but about navigating a maze where sometimes patience and perspective are just as important as hustle. And honestly, I'm still here, working through the next chapter. No corner office yet, no fancy plaque with my name. But I've got a clearer idea of the game and, more importantly, how I want to play it on my own terms, not just reacting to moves made for me. So yeah, losing that promotion sucked. But, funny enough, it ended up teaching me a few things that no spreadsheet or client call ever could. And I guess that's something worth hanging on to, even if I'm still occasionally eyeing that corner office window with a little more caution now.